This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Hey, I'm Peachy.
Hey, I'm Geoff.
And today we are joined by a very special guest. It is Siege Studios' James Otero.
Thank you very much.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Did I say that right?
The company name isn't on my birth certificate, but you can introduce me like that. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
So you're founder and CEO. Is
That's
that
correct.
correct?
Yeah. I have the esteemed honour and privilege of being in that position. Yeah.
So I've been aware of Siege Studios for many years, for numerous reasons. One, you always do Follow Friday, and you always link me in, and that's very kind. So thank you very much for always doing that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Whether that's you or
that's me personally. Yeah, I do that every Friday. Yeah.
I'm awful on social media. I always mean to hashtag people and say thanks and stuff like that, but I'm useless. So that's one way I've become known as Siege Studios, but also a few staff that have gone through workshop have worked for you, and I've just seen lots of stuff, so much stuff on Instagram. I'm just like, that's amazing.
We do post a lot.
You do. So
sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, that's good. I mean, that constant sort of I guess hitting the algorithm, making yourself more out there is because I think with social media, I'm more aware of who you are. Before that was more like a name here and there in the background and stuff. I'd be uttered.
I didn't in the early days. I didn't really do anything like me personally. It was always just obviously as a business. But I when we do internal meetings, we do internal company Zooms and stuff like that. It became evident from some of the team, and I encourage people to be just put ideas on the table and all that kind of stuff. And they're just the company's a little bit faceless, and I was like, right, okay. I come from a music background, so I'm used to being on stage and stuff like that. So I was like, well, social media is just essentially like a stage, but with millions more people watching you, and once it's out there, everyone can see it. So it's not like in a little venue or something. So I just took that on board, and I started doing Sunday streams where I do an hour on just Sunday, just talking, answering questions about painting and and things like that. And I just think it's taking on feedback is really important, and I didn't want the company to be faceless. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's so much that Siege offers, and we'll get into that in a minute. My burning question I've got, and I'm sure we've got a load of questions from the patrons as well, which we'll hit later. But when did it start, and why did it start?
So there's two birthdays, and I'll explain why that is. So the first one is when I literally just started Siege and started the email, and the other one is when we actually became incorporated as a business. So I actually started Siege in 2013, but we're incorporated in August of 2014. So for me, it's been 10 years. Yeah. But as a business, it's just 9. So all our merchant stuff is just 2014, because I was like, you can't really do it if you're not incorporated, that's not official. So 10 years in total, but 9 years as a incorporated business.
Wow. And was it just one day you just went, you know what, I like painting, I bet other people like painting, let's make it into a business kind of thing?
Kind of. So I literally had a huge gap like everybody does. I'm sure loads of people are familiar with having a gap. You obviously go on holidays with friends. Mine was 9 years or so in music, touring my backside around loads of countries and stuff, and then it all fell apart. And went in my loft, found Warhammer, and that was it. Green light, go. So it essentially, when in the early days when I was a kid, I used to paint stuff for my friends. In my gaming group, I've always enjoyed painting. Came back after bands, and then just started putting the occasional video up on social media, just on YouTube, here's a model I've painted or whatever. Got approached by a few guys, and they're like, oh, do you want to paint some models for commission for other people? And I was like, at that point I wasn't 100% savvy in the whole entire niche of the wargaming industry of commission painting. So I started doing it, and there was just lots of things that I was like, well, I'm not really happy with how this is, or happy with how this is, or happy with how this is. And in my full-time, real-time job, I'm a recruitment consultant, so I'm used to sort of super strict, this is how it must be done, this process, blah, blah. And I'm Joe, my ops manager, will back me up on this, even though he does all the operations side of things now for Siege, but I'm terrible at following processes sometimes, and I'm more than happy to admit doing that, but in the early days, I set rudimentary procedures and things in place that I obviously followed then. Yeah. And just tried to do something a bit more professional. Because I'd always in that environment every single day. Yeah. So for me, it kind of doing it any other way didn't kind of feel right for me. And I'd always side myself with the client. I'd be like, right, well, if the client's waiting for this, or if they haven't heard this, or if there's this or this or this or this, I kind of take it a bit personally.
Yeah.
And I just, and especially if I was the one painting the models and then this was happening.
Yeah.
So I just thought, right, well, look, it's been great as a brief learning experience and obviously just trying and seeing obviously if there's a possibility of doing that. But then I kind of stepped away and went, right, I'm going to set something up and I'm going to, for the year of 2013 to 2014, I just done private ones by myself through the email, known as it, with an Instagram account. And yeah, just it got to a point where I was like, right, this can be something serious. And then I still done it for a period of 3-4 years as a side thing, even though it was incorporated as a thing. I'd done it as a side thing to my full-time recruitment job, and it got to a point where some things happened with recruitment. Some goalposts changed, and I lost my mortgage at the time as a result of like losing a bonus. And at that point, I just thought that I got 30 days holiday. Yeah, I know what it's doing around a full-time PAYE job. I'm just gonna don some speedos and goggles and dive straight in, and you know, and that was.
Please tell me you sat there painting speedos.
I did not paint speedos. Mind you, I was in a very hot flat, like on the third or fourth floor. It was very, very hot. But there was no
just using your own sweat to thin down the paint.
For any old kinds of siege, that was definitely not the case. I just dived in because I was like, right, well, you know, it's got to the point that it's got to. I'm not valued where I am, and that's a huge thing for me as an owner of a business as well. It's valuing obviously the people who work for the company, because I've been through that and I've been in that situation, and I've also seen hundreds of companies that I've gone in for meetings, you know, in recruitment, and I've just seen staff that aren't valued and all that kind of stuff, and I literally just I don't like that kind of thing. So we try and. I try and make it the best environment possible to work for a business, if that makes sense.
I mean, from my point of view, I see creatives as two things. You've got like two patches of ground, one which is cultivated and grown and, you know, turned into a nice, beautiful garden that's like, if you go into like council estates, you get like the old lady's house, which is like beautiful,
pristine,
and then you get the sofa with like grass that's grown over it. It's just like barren. So sometimes businesses is like, I just dump stuff on it. It doesn't really matter. Just leave it. It's just a resource to be mined. And then this one's like, it's beautiful. It's creative. It's very nice. It's very pretty and good to look at. So that's how I see creative is like, you have to like really get the best out of them, don't you?
100%. Yeah. Like the creative individuals are very different to sort of individuals that maybe don't have that creative flair or creative side of things. I think it like nurturing and aiding and guidance is very important. Before we start recording, we obviously talk about imposter syndrome. Like I see it all the time, and I have it as well. You know, me personally, obviously I'm a painter of a certain level or whatever, blah blah. But I see stuff day in day out that like blows my mind, and it's a very privileged position to be in and see that stuff every day. But it also makes you think, I can't do that, I wish I could do that, you know. And it's very similar to that. But yeah.
So I wasn't part of this chat show because, at the time, I was very ill, lying on this sofa, unable to speak. But although my body was here, my mind was elsewhere, in beautiful landscapes, thinking about Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one business platform perfect for building your presence online. You can present your work using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs, display projects and customizable galleries, and add password-protected pages to share private work with clients. Image blocks automatically scale or fit images to ensure they always look right, irrespective of their placement within your content. Double-click on an image to see an overlay of the full image itself, then drag that to ensure the best crop for your image. And when you're ready to start selling online, whether you sell physical or digital art, Squarespace has the tools you need to start selling online. Perfect for starting your own commission painting studio. So check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/thepaintingphase for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
So I've got a burning question, and I asked Geoff what his thoughts is. So obviously you're in the music industry. I've got an idea what he did. What do you reckon his music genre was?
What genre?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Egyptian death metal.
Oh, my favourite Egyptian death metal. now I've lost my guess.
Oh, sorry,
I'm going to have to go with Uruguayan death metal now. I'm going to have to go. Oh, I don't know.
Not Slovakian country and western.
No, it's definitely not Slovakian country and western.
I've just got I don't know. I've got a feeling it was. I've just got a feeling it was sort of light funk based.
It wasn't. You're very close. Less of the Egyptian, but yeah. I was in a couple of. I was in a death metal band, and I was also in like a if you know a band called Parkway Drive, or like August Burns Red, so I was in a band.
Parkway Drive.
Very, very similar. Before they went sort of like super massive arena rock, when they were like proper sort of just metalcore. I was like in a metalcore band as well. So
nice.
so
did you have longer hair to match? So
I didn't. I can't grow long hair for absolute love of money. So
I can already tell you've got hair that grows out, not down.
100%. Yeah.
So that's the barber.
That's your bar in you.
Spotted at a mile.
Mine just comes out sideways. Looks like Saturn.
Like a Keith Flint haircut.
Look, if I end up on a desert island, I will not need a pillow after 6 weeks, so it's fine. Okay, all right. So I'll be fine. Yeah, but yeah. So that was fun for 9 years, and I even with bands, I still treated it as a business. Like I think before we were signed, we used to have lots of problems where we go to shows and not get paid for like travelling for 3.5 hours just to get a bit of petrol cover. So one of the things that I did was I set up a email address of a guy that we said was our booking agent, who wasn't a booking agent, who was me, who I worked under another alias, and then I used to send a contract before the show to make sure that we got paid for petrol or wherever we were being paid, and we just turn up and go, did John send you the contract through for us playing? And they'd be like, oh yeah, we got it, you go. So we need to be paid before we play, or pay half before we play.
It's a good way of doing things.
Yeah. I had to do that because we used to play so many shows, and we'd rock up and play to the Village Goat and the Chair at the bar stall, and like fair enough, like the promoter hadn't promoted the show or whatever, but our van or cars or whatever didn't run on thin air.
And I think that having a bit of distance can really it helps. It takes awkwardness out of the out of the situation of money, doesn't it? Really, if you can do that.
I it's really funny because I always used to see it was a business agreement. Like we come to play the music we played, and like you're advertising the show for us to obviously play to people. So like it was that kind of agreement. And is it a bit unhandy to obviously have that alias? I guess maybe a little bit in those days, but just to safeguard yourself, it was
absolutely right. There's nothing I hate talking money with clients, because one of my problems is if people don't turn up for a haircut and they pay for it in advance online, I know they don't get their money back.
Yeah.
And I hate having to discuss it.
I agree.
Because clients will phone up and they go, "Oh, I can't make my haircut, Jeff," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry, can't be. It's a shame." And then they go, "Can I move that down to?" And I go, "Well, I can make you a new appointment, but that money won't travel." And they go, "But I haven't had my haircut." And I'm like,
"But someone else could have sat
you've bet my 30 minutes whether you're there or not." I always say, I said it's a funny one, because what you're buying off me is a haircut, but what I'm selling you is 30 minutes of my time.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that.
But I didn't get my my 30 minutes back.
In a weird way, I kind of get that, because we do one-to-ones. No, Siege offers its own tuition and stuff like that, and we'll probably go into that in a little while. But I always feel bad if they drop a message and they're like, "Oh, I'm feeling ill or I can't make it," and you'd be like, "We can reschedule." But what I've now lost is that time slot for someone else. Every now and again you can pull someone in.
I had it last week. I had somebody couldn't make a haircut, and then bless her, she came in and went, "Jeff, I'm sorry I let you down. I was on a business call, I couldn't get out." And I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm sorry I couldn't cut your hair." And then she was like, "I'll book one for tomorrow." And you feel terrible because you're going, "Well, I've had twice out of that haircut, but I'm like, I'm really
just
sorry."
Really short.
I was like, I'm sorry, Joe. I can't give you money. And she went, "No, I don't expect it back. It's on me." But I hate talking money. So if you can have, maybe that's what I need to do when they phone up. I need to put a different accent on. And
definitely, yeah.
Jeff said that you can't have your money back.
You've got those soundboards that you just play a different thing.
I don't know, that Russian guy he's now got working for him.
Grigori or something like that. I'll call him Grigori.
Go Vlad. It's the best go-to. But I'm so glad you said that, because the thing is like, you're quite right. Like, you are selling time. That's the commodity, and that's very close to my heart. Like, it's something that I everyone in the office and everyone I speak to in general, like when we speak to clients or conventions or whatever, like that is the commodity that we sell. Like, I understand that people perceive it as paint, miniatures, and all that kind of stuff, but that 2 days that the person's going to spend on a model, or those evenings that they spend on the model, is evenings they could spend with their kids, or they could spend spend it watching whatever they want to on Netflix or any of those programs or whatever. Like, that's the commodity we trade. And I think I've been on a mission for the last 10 years of trying to, through Siege, get people to value commission painting and value the experience and the time that goes into what's done.
A good friend of mine, he ended up between jobs, and he'd been a manager of a Games Workshop store, and over the time he then ended up at headquarters, and he'd amassed loads of plastic. And he said, before I can start, he's got a gap, and then I'm going into another job. He thought, but to earn some money in between. And he painted the Ultramarine company from the Tyrannic Wars. Was it
the first company? Yeah,
so he did loads of like scratches and and claws hanging off their belts and all of that sort of stuff. And he showed me it, and I went, "That's amazing." He said, "Yeah." He said, "It's sold," and I was like, "How much you get for it?" It's £1,600, and I'm like, "Wow!" And he went, "Yeah," but he said, "I jotted down every minute that I spent on it," and he says, "And I'm massively below minimum wage."
Yeah,
and I think the people don't. They look at £1,600 of buying painted plastic toys, don't they? They don't look at the amount of hours it creates to get there.
So,
yeah,
and that's the problem.
That's what I'd like to chat to you about, because it's made me think about a couple of things. When I used to work at Workshop, we used to do they'd freelance some projects out. So like Age of Sigmar was hitting, they needed some more armies doing. And the cost for the army painters was so low that a lot of them just didn't want to do it because it wasn't worth their time in the evening. So they were like, I could spend time with my family, or I could just spend time with my friends, or earn this pittance. But I'm spending like all my evenings for the next 2 weeks earning this pittance, which is money. When you look at it, you're like, it's still money, but it's like, that is my free time worth more than this extra cash that I'm being paid by Workshop? And it panned out that actually some of the other departments around the business were getting paid more per hour, or per whatever. But the argument was, yeah, but you're army painters. Now, I've always thought, like, when you're sat at the table and you're physically painting, doesn't matter if you're a high-end painter or a low-end painter, you're still, I mean, there are some strategies and hacks and stuff that we can all learn, but for the most part, an heavy metal painter and an army painter, the heavy metal are on their chair a lot longer doing their thing than an army painter will be, and they're doing more. There's more bulk. So, like, if I was doing an army, I'd like have 200 figures, whereas heavy metal would have like 20, and we're there at the same time, but they get paid more. Yeah. And I'm like, how is that balanced and stuff like that? So that always used to be quite an annoyance for a lot of the...
it's quantity versus quality, but it still amounts to...
But you're still there...
It still amounts to being 60 seconds in a minute, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, I mean, I'm very, very... I've spoken about it a few times with different individuals and different mediums, but like, I see commission painting as a trade. And
absolutely,
that rubs some people up the wrong way, and I understand why. I just want to make it clear, like, I understand that this whole entire industry comes from a hobby background. I get that totally. When I'm outside the siege office, when I'm at home in my painting room, painting Blood Angels every single day of my life for the rest of my life, that is what it is for me.
Yeah.
But it's a really weird amalgamation, our industry, like within wargaming, like commission painting. It's a weird niche of a niche. It's perceived as a hobby in general by everybody.
Yeah.
But I want individuals in my business to be able to do all the things they want to be able to do through doing the thing that they love.
Yeah.
And the thing is every other trade on earth is valued for what it is.
Well, the funny thing is I realise with you are actually the reverse of me, because I say you buy my time, but what people buy from you is they're buying their own time back, aren't they? Because it's time they haven't had to spend painting an army, which they just don't have the time available, or they don't have the skill or the resource, or the fact that sitting there will make them extraordinarily anxious because they're not doing it fast enough for a tournament, or be up to a standard that they're happy with. Mm-hmm. So you are selling them not only just a painted product, but you're selling them their own time back.
Correct, yeah.
Instead of going, I don't have to dedicate that Sunday to get that whole army, the next 10 Sundays to get that army ready for a tournament, because they've bought it done from you. They've bought time back. It's Sundays with their kids, not Sundays sat at a table.
It is a really strange thing because there is that whole, I just do it as a hobby, and I've had it at conventions. Like I'll talk to anybody that comes up to the siege stand, and I'll gladly answer any questions I physically can at that point with speaking with them. But the thing is that for the last 10 years or so, it's taken a long time to kind of gradually, hopefully, shift an understanding of what it is that we are as a business. Yeah. Whether you're somebody who paints models for your friends and they give you a packet of crisps and a six pack of Diet Coke, that's fine. Yeah. If you're happy to trade your time for that, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And I wanted to say that clearly. That's perfectly fine. However, because I've always wanted to do it from the moment I started Siege, and from the moment I've thought of this is how I want to do it, I wanted it to be a business. I wanted it to be, develop into this thing that people can earn decent money doing, and also enjoy what they do doing it as well. that's very far removed from a hobby. And I think that, you know, I never want it to mitigate and take away from someone's personal, this is my hobby, I enjoy doing this, blah, blah, blah. I think the moment you cross that precipice of trying to do it professionally or trying to do it as to earn a decent money or a salary or whatever, it has to be considered that. The thing that really gets me is that you know, for every other trade on earth, you go to college, you study, you know, you spend all these years, you get the bit of paper at the end of it that says you've got this accreditation.
You're now gas safe.
You're now gas safe. Yeah. I'm crap with boilers. But you know, in our industry, the person starting learning to paint and progressing and becoming a better painter, in my mind, is no real different than the concentrated dedication of 2-3 years in college to get that. Yeah. But when the person develops that skill, they then don't have this shiny bit of paper that's like, I'm a commission painter now. Like, you don't get that. There's an interesting thing. I mean, firstly, I've got a friend who's a hobbyist. He worked in retail with me. His name's Nige, and he hates painting. He used to spray a lot of his things black, and you could tell he just didn't enjoy it. He pays people now to paint stuff, and you can see he's happy. He gets what he wants, how he wants to. And I don't think out there's no right or wrong way to do the hobby. I used to have people come in the store that just wanted to read the books, people that come in that just wanted to play the games. So when you say it's a hobby, it doesn't have to be painting. No,
some
it doesn't.
People just don't want to do that. But going to the certificate thing, I think that's a really interesting thing. And, you know, I'm not saying which should be a thing, but out there on eBay, there are people that refer to themselves as pro painter because they do it professionally, and they call themselves pro painted, but it looks like they've dunked it into a vat of just every colour mixed together. And people are paying thinking that, and sometimes they show the wrong image. They show an image from a website, and they get this lump, and that's like having a cowboy builder versus an actual qualified builder.
The thing is, the reason why.
So having a certificate would make
it would. I'd be incredibly biased if I set up some kind. I've said this before, like, you know, every other trade on earth has a governing body, or has like a guild, or has like a chartered institute, or accreditation or something. You can't do that with ours, purely because, number one, if I set it up, I'd be extremely biased to Siege, which is completely incorrect. Damn. But no. But on all jokes aside, on the flip side of it, like, because it has this artistic, creative side of it, that's the one thing that differentiates it, really. I mean, look, you speak to a carpenter, and arguably that is art as well. You know, you look at some of the joints you see on tables, and things like they're like beautiful, but construction-wise, they're incredible. I think carpentry is like probably the closest that has like a splash of artistry to it. Plumbing, I mean, I'm not taking away from any plumber, any electrical. You
lost without them.
You 100%. Some plumbing that you see is like immaculate and pristine, and you look under my kitchen sink and it's like blooming jungle. But the reality is that, like, I think because ours has got this artistic overlay of creativity to it, with what you're saying about eBay, about pro painters and stuff like that, there's nothing inherently wrong with that at all whatsoever. I'm not saying you were saying that, but like the reality is that there's just it's like going in an art gallery and looking at one artist's painting and looking at it and going, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then there's you go to another artist and it's just like a gridded square with like one red square.
Now, a good old Mondrian.
Yeah, Mondrian. That's exactly it. Yeah. I was burning on my tongue that name. I couldn't remember it. I didn't want to say something wrong.
I didn't do art history college at all.
But both of the bits of art are worth being in the gallery. Yeah. However, they're just interpreted in very, very different ways.
Picasso as well, like, you know, it looks like a child's coloured it in. But
well, this is the thing, isn't it? So, and this is the problem with those, where you're getting to with regards to selling the product and trying to get it away from being a hobby, is the fact is you are selling something that is utterly subjective.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But the thing that is annoying is the fact is I think we don't have people's boundaries of what they accept to be art is very limited or different from person to person. People going, I'd like you to pay £5,000 for this army of plastic men, and they go, well, that's utterly ridiculous. Yeah. But the same person might look at a £5,000 picture in a gallery, and go, that's amazing, and that is a job, that is someone's job. Yeah. And it's just a perception of the term art. The problem with art is it's such an enormously big word for 3 letters, and you know
it has so much scope as well. This is the thing, like, you know, and that's the really interesting point about, I think that's what keeps me super engaged and super interested in the niche of commission painting within the wargaming industry, is because it has so much to it that every day is completely different. And the reality of it is that, again, having these amazing conversations with people and clients and people I see at shows or you speak through social media or whatever, and like trying to you get some client customers that understand it completely because they have that they go, right, okay, well, it's time, blah blah blah. But I think, as we've said, like, because it's not a visible, tangible thing, like, people don't really value it as much, I find, and I think that's something that, you know, is a real shame, because without sounding too morbid, when it's gone and you've used it, you don't get it back. So that really, in the grand scheme of things, in my mind, it's way more important than lots of other things. And how if you choose, it's really like a huge thing. Like, if those people that do go, oh yeah, I'll paint your some Dark Elder, or I'll paint your Elder or Elves or whatever for a packet of crisps and some Coke, that's actually like one of the nicest things that someone can do for you, because they're giving that commodity that they don't get ever again, basically for nothing. You know, which I think is an amazing thing. So for anyone that does that, that's brilliant, and hats off to you. But it's not, in my mind, the way to approach it if you're wanting to treat it and earn a living from it. If you follow me, and I think that's the huge difference.
Recently, I had a dabble. Sorry, Jeff. I had a dabble at. I was doing some commission stuff, as in, like, if I was to do it lone wolf, and that was with War Daddy. A video should be coming out in a week or so's time, because we've got a set time when we're going to put it out, and that was really interesting for me, because when I was working at in the army painting team, you get like freelance stuff out, you still had that security blanket of a salary. So even if, like, oh, sorry Pete, you know, I'm a bit behind because, you know, the child's ill, not had a chance to get this unit done, can we put, you know, add that into the photography later on? It'd be like, yeah, it's fine. So you had that security blanket of being able to push things a little bit more, but also, you know, sometimes the cost was a bit like, that's not really worth my time in the evenings, to be fair, but I'll do it because it needs doing. Whereas doing this for War Daddy was really interesting, because I was constantly like, is this enough? Is this too much? And, you know, I'll talk in the video a bit more about it when it gets put up live. But he rescues miniatures. He buys them off eBay, rescues them, and then it's basically people in between work. He would like say, you know, do you want to do some commission painting? Single miniatures get like £3 a model. Then it's like dreadnoughts are like £8. I think tanks and bigger things are like a tenner, and like big badass characters like Primarch's like 15 or something like that. So I've got all these metal talons, and I'm painting them up, and I'm like, I have to do some maths here. I'm like, my time is valuable, but I also want to get this up to a certain point that's going to sell. So I'm like, when I was at workshop, it was £10 an hour, and that's good. So if I'm spending an hour, and these are £3 each, I'm probably spending 20 minutes per figure. So, but if I'm batching them, I can I can cut corners, I can save time when I'm batching them. So that's 10 figures. So I'm looking at 20 minutes for 10 figures. So that's 200 minutes. So we, you know, about a couple, 2 hours, something like that. So I've got 2 hours to paint this unit of 10, 2 hours to paint this unit of 10, and I'm just bashing through it, and I'm like doing like a couple of base coats, a couple of contrast shades were really helpful here, dry brushing, and I'm there at the end of it going, I'm happy with them, but I should put more into it. And then I'm like, if I put more into it, that's more of my time now. I'm losing. But then I'm starting to get this imposter syndrome. Like, am I doing a bad job here? Would people buy this? Because I know my friend would probably buy this because they're base coated and they're coloured in. Whereas he can't do that. He doesn't like colouring in models. I do, but I have standards of what I like and what I want on my tabletop. Whereas I've seen people at wargame shows where they're just happy with, like, you know, the model sprayed white or the model sprayed blue or whatever.
And it's massively, that is, again, it's just an absolute case of balance, isn't it? You know, absolutely. It's that thing of, like, you know, it's beautiful to it's lovely to have a beautiful army, but then also at the same point in time, it's this thing of remembering they're 4 foot away. If you game with them, it's trying to find your balance, isn't it?
That's exactly it. I mean, if you're going to be putting them on a table, you're going to be having, you know, drink near them, or you're going to be eating your favourite crisps and then handling the models and all that kind of stuff. Like, do you really want to be investing like that amount of time into painting them if they're going to do that? If, however, you're going to put them on the shelf and it's your favourite character and you're going to be looking at it for the rest of your life or whatever, like, it's a very different purpose for that model.
Exactly, because no one's ever at a tournament said, I've got to give it to you, that 7th Marine Cross on the left, that's a really nicely painted holster.
I love this. I love the 8 highlight stages on the bulk gun casing.
You've really caught that purity seal really well. You know what I mean? Because they become a block of things.
Well, I think your website does this really well, because what you have is you have different I say coding system, but you have gold.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting with gold. You know what you're getting with silver.
Yeah,
you know what you're getting with bronze. I mean, I could be wrong. Bronze feels like more unit levels and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But now you've got warrior.
Yeah,
I want to ask about a bit more about what warrior
totally.
is and stuff like that.
That's something that was on the back burner of doing for a very long time. COVID happened. I actually, it's even before COVID. I actually thought of doing warrior in 2017, and literally, I was at the point whereby things were going, Siege was going. It was just me back then, obviously, just on the office side and all that thing, and I just didn't have enough plates to put that food on and spin it as well. I was literally like, right, I can't. So it went on the back burner once. I was set to launch it and set to do it, and then COVID happened, and I was like, right, okay, it went on the back burner again. So it's been in the making for quite some time.
Yeah.
But you know, when I started Siege 10 years ago, I done my sort of research and due diligence in the industry because again, coming from a very competitive recruitment background, I don't want to be doing stuff that other people are doing and all that kind of stuff. So I named the levels, and I think this is the mistake that I made when I set Siege up, and I kind of named our levels something which I thought had an arbitrary value, as in like you've got the bronze, silver, gold, platinum, etc. But they weren't copywritten names. So the issue with that is that it for the beginning of Siege, where nobody else had those names, that was what was offered at Siege, and then obviously as the industry's got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was obviously, I don't mind people using the same names or anything at all. I've got no ownership over those words at all whatsoever. But I think I would very much have liked to have had names which were relevant to Siege Siege to
I
be
suppose
what
they might
Siege
mean
is.
different things on different places, so that could confuse.
Is that what? I mean, you get oh, this person's bronze is this or this, and I get that totally. And the thing is that we're at the point we're at, and our levels are what they are. But I'm a firm believer in what we present for each of those levels. Hopefully, is a good representation of what our levels are, and it's just down to the consumer and the customer to decide whether this bronze is better than this bronze. And again, that's with the overlay of it being art as well. So but warrior. Obviously, all of our levels are stylistically very much like box art. So we paint in a very sort of clean, edge highlighted style. Stylistically, if someone there could be customers that potentially prefer a more airbrush style that they come to our website and they're like, oh, well, there's nothing really for me, or I don't know if I can have that because everything that I see on there is a certain way. So Warrior was a little bit of an experiment in the sense of hopefully trying to offer something that is tailored and targeted more at a person who wants to game with something. And obviously factually they take less work in the sense because you're not doing loads of hours of edge highlighting on them. They've got some edging on them, but not as much. A lot of the work is done more with an airbrush as opposed to just sitting doing loads and loads and loads of edge highlighting and loads of brush work on the models. And then it hopefully gives someone the option of choosing something that both maybe price point wise and also stylistically is what they prefer. And then it just increases hopefully what a potential customer can choose from by coming to the business, and that's kind of like what we wanted to do with Warrior.
It's such a broad spectrum because I was looking at the gallery and like you know what you get when you look at platinum. You're like that is pretty high end levels of stuff. So it goes. I think the name for me, the names make sense. I saw the Warrior ones and it did look a lot. Obviously, when I was looking at it, that looks airbrushed. There's some highlights on it, but what makes that difference to bronze? But you made that quite clear now. So now I totally get that.
Bronze definitely has and we get asked this. That's one of the first things we got asked. Is like because we had in the video. I thought it'd be really good to. I spoke about it with the guys in the office. And really good to have like a bronze model, and a Warrior model next to each other. And immediately, obviously, from a painter's perspective, as a painter that the bronze model has way more put into it. Edge highlight, all the everything that's done into the multiple stage,
base coated,
all that kind of stuff is all done on it. And the Warrior model, because of the volumetric highlighting with the airbrush, it instantly has that tonal gradient in various areas and stuff. But then we had people going, "Oh, well, is Warrior higher, or is it?" And it's like it is lower because not as much is onto it. But then there's the stylistic choice of the individual. Then kind of takes prerequisite, and they're like, right, well, I don't really maybe want everything edge highlighted, and I prefer Warrior. But amount of work on the model, Warrior is definitely lower than bronze in every way, shape, and form. But stylistically, it kind of gives someone entering to the Siege experience, I suppose, if you want to call it anything, a choice between whether they want something more box art style or they want something that's a bit more airbrushy and volumetric. So
it is interesting that it's a lot of the box art style, and I really like that. And I guess there's a lot of people that have grown up with workshop that's what they see, and they're like, I want some of that, I want to be able to paint that, and you offer that, which is really, really good. Even like the eye painting stuff, that the style that we used to do was very much clean, crisp, using those acrylics, so they could easily like disappear into the background and still not clash too much. It's when you start getting like the airbrush ones mixed in. So this is one of the things we used to have with the publications. If you've got like a Citadel army and you chuck in a Forge World vehicle, it's so different because it's based very different. The paint apps on it are very different, and you just it clashes. But if that army was all done the same, then it looked fine. But sometimes when you're dropping in random different things, that does have an effect to like the photography, which is why we used to keep to a very similar wave. So it's nice to see those styles, and I'm always just like, look, it is model porn, really, isn't it?
I've never had anyone describe the Siege website as that, but
it is. It's like, I was like looking through it because for me as a painter, I mean, I like looking at heavy metal stuff, and I would never paint to that level. Well, I mean, I can do, and I want to sometimes, but time is a thing, and I'm just like, I could paint that one character to that level, or I could paint 50 501st Clone Troopers, and then play like a couple of Legion games over a weekend and stuff like that. So there's that balance, but I really like looking at nicely painted stuff, because it's that aspirational thing. It gives you ideas, like, that's really cool. I like what you've done there. I like that choice of colour.
It's great. But then when you're surrounded in it in a bubble of this, like, every single day, it's good, and also I wouldn't say bad. It's not bad, but like it's good. But it really makes you think. Oh, like you said, self-checking yourself. It's like I wish I could do that, or have they done that, or whatever, blah blah. And like it does make you. It does breed that competitiveness a little bit. I think in me, because I'm just like, right, well, I also feel a little bit like, and this is one thing that I really, really, I think for me, I don't ever like being in a position whereby I can't walk the path that I expect, if that makes sense. And I think the thing is there's lots of business owners out there that don't know how the till works, or don't know how this is done, or how to lay a brick wall, or whatever, this kind of stuff. And I don't want to ever kind of be in that position, because I think it causes a lot of resentment in the company, I think, sometimes.
I mean, I used to talk about this when I used to do management, and I remember someone saying that the best boxer isn't taught by the best boxer, he's taught by a really good coach. So you don't have to be the best at doing that skill set thing, as long as you can get the best out of the people, and if they can see that, that's all that matters.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Mourinho, who used to be the manager of Chelsea, never been a professional footballer in his life. He used to be the translator for British footballers going abroad.
Really?
And he's obviously just heard football and been stood around, because obviously people manage football clubs and can't speak the language of the majority of the team. So you just hear tactics day in, day out, day in, day out. You don't, well, never been a professional footballer, but it's absorbing all of that information, isn't it? And it's, I mean,
so I totally get where you're coming from, because I had that kind of feeling a few times when I was managing the painters, and I'd love like Paul Norton, who's like really, really good at painting. There'll be like Nat Slynn, and they both gone off to heavy metal now. I think Paul's in the specialist design studio, and they're painting stuff I could never do, but they still respected what I could do.
Absolutely.
And if I said to him, are you able to do like another 10 of those in the same kind of time? And he'd be like, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm like, well, I know I could do that, but I can't do it to your level. I'm asking, can you do that in that time to your level? And he'd be like, maybe I need an extra couple of days. That's fine, because I can get you an extra couple of days. So you'd have that kind of conversation, and you squeeze it out. But I never felt at any point that but I used to get this kind of feeling like, do they hate me? Do they think I'm an idiot?
Because I'm like, you'll see projects come in, or you'll see specs come in, and like, it's an amazing idea, or blah blah. But it's like, for me, I don't want to be in a position of ignorance to what the expectation is, and also at the same time, I don't want to expect something of somebody without the ability to have a conversation with them and speak to them, and help them. It's just about aiding as much as possible the team member, and just saying, well, like there was an example the other day about one of the team wasn't sure how to magnetise a Redemptor Dreadnought, and I was like, right, well, you can do this, there's this option, and I imagine not having that knowledge of how to do it, but being in a position of giving that to somebody, and I'm just like, I find it really, it almost causes me anxiety to be in like a position where I can't help as much as I can, or I can't aid someone that maybe doesn't have that, and that's that. I don't know, but it's a real difficult thing. You see stuff come into the studio, and you're like, holy cow, like, and that's amazing. How have they done that? And I'll dive into the recipe. I'll have I'll read of it just to make sure, so I can, if that then comes down the line in 3, 6, 12, 18, 24 months, I can at least answer the question with confidence. I think is the thing,
I definitely remember Paul and Nat were saying that they wanted to do more, they wanted to get into heavy metal, and they're like, well, how do we do that? And I was, and as I suppose as a manager, just like, you know what, I don't know, I'll find out. So I had a chat with my boss, and I said, is it worth like chatting to like Heavy Metal, see if they got any like projects, because they were always behind because they had so much to do, and they'd probably put a bit too much effort in some things than they should have done, so things overran a bit. So there was always like a few projects that were like put on the back burner and stuff. And in the end, Hannah, her name is, she used to do the scheduling, she managed the painters. I think she still does. She just came up like, we've got loads of projects that need doing. I was like, if could we like give them to Paul and Nat, and then they get like critiqued and stuff, and that was therein. So I then went, I've given you the option now, and you now need to go and talk to people that know what they're doing to get feedback. And that worked for them, and then I guess that's how they got their foot in the door to Heavy Metal. I couldn't teach them how to paint to Heavy Metal levels. I mean, I've sat with Heavy Metal painters and listened to them, and it's gone, it's dry brushing.
There's nothing worse than being sat with experts and it's not going in. People are going to roll their eyes. I was in the military for 10 years,
right?
And I spent a month as a door gunner on a helicopter in Northern Ireland. Mm-hmm. I got in a helicopter every day and got my gear ready, set the machine gun up, and look at these two guys every day for a month virtually. I still don't understand how you start a helicopter or how you make it fly.
It's got a big handle.
You just thought it was just a big handle in the middle. But they get in, and you can hear the chatter because you're all on the same headset. And they go, and yep, and blah, 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 and you just, and then sometimes you'd have a GoPro over and you go, well, that hand's doing that, but that hand's doing something, and you just think, I don't understand how that works. And you think, well, if you sat in a car with somebody for a month and sort of watch, you went, it sounds a bit different, and then you did that, and it now sounds lower.
Yeah.
But it's awful when you're with it, where you watch or you're near experts, and you just think, I'm just out me.
Yeah. It's like watching someone play a guitar. I'm just like,
yeah, I know. I'm
just
like
tickling it on.
I know you're twanging pieces of wire, but I still don't understand how that works. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like when my wife is obsessed with. She really loves astrophysics.
Right. Okay.
And watches loads of stuff about it. Really into it. And I hear them and I just go, yeah, they just. There was one the other day, she was watching like an hour-long video about the explanation and understanding of black holes and all the rest of it, and I was just like...
You know what you need? Brian Cox. He's the best.
He's
so good at describing everything.
I always said if I ever won the lottery, I would hire Brian Cox and hire a cinema and then watch Interstellar with him. That's but with the ability to pause it.
Yeah.
Right then, Brian, what's that? Off you go to your A-board, get drawing. It's like, Richard Gray, the paint.
Yeah.
I love Richard Gray, but I never get to the end of it and go, oh God, I picked up 4 good tips there. I just get to the end of it and go, well, that was gorgeous.
He's
I'm not the wiser.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal painter. Like he's just like he's been. And
it's
painting.
not like he's not approachable. It's not like he sits there and talks jargon.
Yeah.
But you just sit there and go, you bend paint around and light in a way that my brain just doesn't comprehend that. So I never come away and go, right then, what did Richard say? I love him. I love his work. He's astounding, but I don't take anything away from it. It's like watching Usain Bolt. I go, he's ran that 100 metres, but it doesn't mean I've got, now I give it a crack.
I know exactly how you feel, because exactly what you're saying about Jose Mourinho a minute ago, I have no knowledge or understanding of football at all whatsoever, and I know the name, but I don't know anything about him.
My brother has tried explaining the offside rule to me so many times. I'm just like,
I don't know. I know that, but yeah,
I don't. I'm just like, so what? So. Explain it again. I'm there with like dice trying to like. So if this guy's here and that guy's there and the ball goes, what?
Well, you see, as coming from Liverpool, you understand the offside rule before you can learn to read.
I suppose, yeah. It's in your genes.
It literally is.
So, I mean, with Siege as well, you offer tuition, which is really interesting. And you've been doing that a while now?
I think physical class is 8 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then online, probably about 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
About that. So
how do you find the online versus the physical? How they... Because I've obviously started doing some one-to-one tuition. I'm always like super like, was that all right? Did they get the money's worth? I feel really bad.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because thing is, one thing that became very evident from sort of teaching physical classes is people do learn in a whole plethora of different ways. And like physical class is great for some people. Like I'm very much a visual learner, it's the same as a lot of people and that come on classes, and they have to be there next to you or sit and watch you do each step, go away, do it, come back to learn. Whereas others, you just can explain the steps and they'll go, got it,
Yeah.
And so like online works really well for those individuals, and even with like visual learners, like you can flip the camera, you can kind of show your hands and things like that. So there is that thing. I think YouTube videos are great for a certain amount of learning, and if you can extrapolate from them the steps to give you the path to create the end result, then that's amazing. But I think physical classes are definitely great for certain people. Online tuition is also a really good medium for people that maybe aren't in the same country, that can't come to a physical class or can't come to a class, or whatever the case may be. You're very right in what you said about making sure the person sort of like, is that okay? Or I still get that now. Like I ask the question so many times, have you got that? Do you understand that? Whatever, it becomes annoying, I think, sometimes. But I'd rather cross-check that many times, so that for me, I know that person's going away with everything they need to be able to do it.
No, agreed.
It's a real difficult one. Again, you get the imposter syndrome. You're like, okay, I've got to help this person, and like, and ask the right questions, and prompt the right questions, and guide the right way, and show the right thing. And it's
reassurance for you as well as them, isn't it?
A little bit,
because you think if you spent ages saying all of these things and it wasn't going in, you'd feel bad if he walked out and walked away from it and they hadn't got what they paid for. So it's for them of going, oh yeah, I think I have got it, or no, can you tell me that bit again? But I always think I'm like that with haircuts. It's always like, is that what you want? Is that exactly how you wanted it? Because if they walked away and they went home and they went, look at the state of that, it wouldn't just be the fact that, you might never see them again. I'd be disappointed that they paid for it and it wasn't what they'd asked for.
No, you're bang on with that. And I think that's the thing, is like making sure the person does grow from that session is the sole most important thing. And I don't mind sometimes, like even if you get to the end of the hour, 2 hour, whatever it is you're spending time with them, even if they need a 5-minute recap, like just to go over certain key things, I think that even if you go over a little bit, just give a little bit more, I think the value that gives to the person is huge.
I found most of my one-to-ones, I usually do 2 hours. Sometimes there's a guy in the States who's like, I can't do 2 hours, can I do an hour here and an hour there? And I was like, I don't like doing that, because it like screws up the day, because I'm trying to fit people in. But I'm absolutely fine to do it from time to time. I'm looking at doing actually just single slots now. I said I was starting the new year, but we've just been busy. But yeah, I'm constantly like 20 minutes after I'm done going, and then there's this thing I can show. And there's this thing. I feel like a Ken Dodd comedy show, because he just never ends. He's renowned for never ending.
That's right.
And my wife's going, that was like an extra half hour. They're getting their money's worth out of you, aren't they? I was like, yeah, well, I feel bad, because I've got all this stuff and they've asked a question. I don't want to like not answer it. But yeah, I'm awful. I should like be a bit more sort of not cutthroat.
No,
just be a bit more
I get what you're saying.
A bit more laser focused.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in situations like that, it's about give and take. I think if you've got a reoccurring student that's coming back to you loads and loads and loads, then of course, like if it's to put it in hopefully not a crude way, but if it's a one and done, then literally like I would probably advocate more going down the route of just sticking to the time frame and budgeting in the 5 minutes at the end into the hour to give them 55 and do a check at the end, because in that way at least you can close off the session basically going, right, well, I've answered all the questions that I knew that I were going to ask. They've not thrown any curveballs. They've not asked something that's then extended the session. But you kind of put in an awkward position where you're like, sorry, I don't want to answer that. And you don't want to end the session like that. So but I think just a quick 5-minute reconvene is a really good way just to make sure and just say, right, we've covered this. Any questions about any of that? No, tick. Okay. Anything else that you want to ask just quickly before we finish up? And then that normally solves it and you don't have that kind of if I asked that.
Like you say, well, it's peace of mind in both directions, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So obviously, background in recruitment.
Yes,
you've got a huge team now.
Kind of.
I was actually looking when I was making a tea for Jeff. I was like, I'll have a quick look to see how many people are on it, because I looked last night and you said you got about 10, but there's loads of people around that as well, isn't there?
The website is not actually accurate.
Oh, is it not?
No,
okay.
But in the sense of there's way more that's on the website. So
wow.
Just for context, so Joe's my ops manager joined in May of 2019, and when he turned up to the office, he obviously like what I'm aware of now, people have a presumption or expectation of what Siege is, etc. But back then, even then, he thought that I had a few people in the office. So he turned up on his first day and he came into the room and he's like, where is everyone? I went, it's just me, dude. And he went, what? I was like, it's just me. And then since then, we obviously took on a few extra office team. But the painting team has steadily grown over the years, so we're up to just over 70 team members now.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't think you were going to say that number.
No,
Yeah.
I was thinking 20, 30.
No,
That's impressive.
So it's split across,
Yeah.
because Siege's got different brands. So you've got obviously
Yeah.
the Warrior team, you've got the Siege
Yeah.
core team, you've got the senior team, and then you've got customer service, which is whole another part of the brand. It has its own team. So across those 4 different teams within Siege, you've got over 70 individuals
That's
on
amazing.
the tools, and then on top of that, you've got the office team as well.
So what are you running total?
Probably mid 70s, 80 at the moment, total team complement.
So there's a question. How many painters are they on, roughly on average, do they have at Games Workshop?
That's grown since I was there. It's going to be...
They've got more than us, I'm sure.
I don't think so. I think like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
about 10 in the One World Scenery team. So the exhibition guys are, I'd probably say about 10. But then you have some people that work for Forge World sitting in there.
Right, okay.
So I'd probably say it's about 50 painters.
Because I thought there was about 20 in the main heavy metal team, and then
Yeah, that's grown.
and then-
Yeah.
and
Of
then-
course, I didn't even consider heavy metal. I was thinking the army painting teams.
No,
so, yeah,
well,
okay.
because I was talking about the different brand. I thought
Yeah.
there must have been total more than us,
I
definitely.
think it might be the same. Because there's a lot of work from home as well, so it's hard. So when I was there, it was hard to actually put a pinpoint like who still worked for the business, who didn't, because some people would still work from home, but they're still employed. But then you're not seeing for years.
Those two or 3, I say 2 or 3 years during the COVID thing, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
everything, like it's just crazy. And so I say this to the guys in the office, it feels like they've been with the business way longer, but in reality, it's only 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels like it's been 5.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that period of time, because it was so intense and it was very busy, and obviously everyone was, separated and everything, it felt like time, it was like a time, like everyone feels like the time has just gone so much slower than
It is
actually
weird
did.
because I feel I was working in Warhammer TV for longer than I was, because I started 2 weeks after my child was born.
Right.
And he's like 5.5.
Wow.
I feel like it's 7. I feel like I was in Warhammer TV for 7 years at least, but like it's only 5.5,
Yeah.
or was 5.5. I can't keep saying we, and but I'm not there anymore. But it was bizarre to think that it's only 5 years. I thought it was
Yeah.
longer than that. But yeah, COVID really did
Yeah,
flip people's.
it's
I reckon
crazy.
you've seen that movie where the day the earth stood still. I think it's that. I think that's what happened.
I think you might be
We
right.
all got paused. We all got put on pause.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Like, so so the growth of Siege has been really mental for me. Like, and it was only in the last year or so where I think what we were talking before we started. Like, because I live, eat, sleep, breathe it every day, and it is literally like my child. I don't have kids at the minute, and for me, I see it the same every day, which is good and bad. Like, because it's obviously way further on from where I started it, so my treatment and perception of it needs to be way more suited to where it's at now.
Yeah,
So that's a
yeah.
thing I always have to check that, and always have to stay in line with that, because it's very easy to remember it when it was just me in a flat above a chemist,
Yeah,
or before
yeah.
I got the office, and before obviously the team grew and all that kind of stuff. But now it's like it is this crazy thing that, like, if you'd have said to me all those years ago, this is a flash of where it's going to be, a vision of where it's going to be in the future, like, I'd be like, holy crap, like, there's no way, like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
mental, like, and but I think that's testament to the industry, and it is testament to the way that the industry is growing. I think it's testament to the way that what we do as a business is being perceived more as an actual proper professional
Yeah,
service.
yeah.
As well, which is what I've been trying to fly the flag for many years, and it's crazy. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to like workshop. I mean, that was the same. It started off as like guys selling things out of a caravan, and now look at it, it's
Yeah,
like
I
a
know.
multi-million business that's got signed up deals to like Amazon, or whether that will ever happen or not, we don't know. But the way that, and you've got to move from those small business mentalities to larger corporations. And I know from my experience of being there, there's that kind of like, you're in that point in the road where it's really bumpy, because it's like there's a lot of old small business mentalities clashing with
Right.
big
Corporate
corporation
mentality,
mentalities, and none seem to like gel particularly well. Sometimes you get the odd department that seems to be all right, and then someone will move into that department and it'll all be shaken up and everyone's like really unhappy, and that's probably explains why there's a few people jumping ship at the moment,
Right.
because they're not enjoying it, or it's just like not what they expected it to be. But yeah, it's definitely that moving from small to big, and you've gone through that, and keep on pushing. It sounds like you're doing great.
Yeah, so it is really interesting. Like, I was saying, like, when we obviously recruit for painters and stuff, like, I try and just be like, well, I don't have to, I'm not demean it, but I just try and basically come across like, well, you treat it as if it was someone who was joining 5-6 years ago. But the reality is their perception of where Siege is at is very, very, very different to where you know it is. And you know, and that's the real interesting thing. It's kind of like managing that expectation now on a day-to-day basis, and managing that kind of understanding of where we're at. You know, it's very interesting, and it's hard to live every day. So.
How are you doing for time, by the way, Geoff?
With sound, I was going to say though, because the questions have bumped right up since we last lot.
Yeah, so I've got.
Should we ask?
I was going to ask some
a few?
questions. Yeah, I was going to see if any of our fans asked the same question, but that's jumped up, blooming heck.
Yeah.
So I won't
Popular
go
boy.
through all of them, guys. So I'll try my best, but we are. Jeff is on a bit of a timeline now.
I'm on my lunch break basically.
So we've got Richard Rose. Oh no, he's just saying people being on the best behaviour. So that's my. It's gone weird. I don't know why it's doing this.
Do you want me to go? Do you want me to start?
No, that's fine. It's just it keeps saying something went wrong. It keeps popping up. Right. So James Tarrant saying, does painting at a consistently high level regularly start to feel easier? Do you feel like you only have to push, say, like the last 25% on a model for a professional finish, or do you still get halfway through the mini before the real concentration sets in?
Mindset with painting, I think, is something that I would advocate that if you always think like I paint the sharpest, neatest, best I can, I think you'll maintain that consistent execution as you do it. Obviously, as a model starts to come to life, you get kind of like more invested into it, and you start seeing the finished result of where you see it getting to. I think painting high level, it's a really interesting saying or explanation of it, but like really painting high level, and that's again with this whole caveat of art being art. If you approach it in the mindset of neatest, sharpest, best I can, half of the battle is kind of won. If you get it, get what I mean. And I think it doesn't get so much draining. I think that you, like any process or like any exercise, the more times you do it, I mean, repetition's the mother of success. So the more that you do it, the easier inherently it does become, and hopefully the quicker it becomes because you refine how you do it to a way that gets the result as quick as possible without sacrificing the quality aspect of it. It can do. If there's a model that I've been there where I've been painting a model to a high standard, and you're on the 8th highlight stage across all the armour, and he's got more armour than you could possibly imagine, you know, and you're just like, I've been there, I know what it feels like, you know. But I think if you have something else by the side that you just pick up and like, right, okay, well, I'm going to just spend 5 minutes just slap chopping this or just whatever, you know, and you're then feeding the different part of the what you need as a painter, and
which
what
is
you're
like
trying
a cleanser,
to
isn't it?
Yeah, it is, very much.
Which is
so.
why I find it really sad that it's moved from, like when I was saying workshop, like it's split into 40k and Age of Sigma. I always used to like have that break.
You talked about this before, didn't you? That you enjoyed being able to bounce between.
Because if I was like if I was doing 40k and like an army for 40k at home, I might do a bit of Lord of the Rings or a bit of Napoleonics and stuff like that, and then like the next week it'd be Age of Sigma or Warhammer or whatever. So you had like a nice bit of it was always fresh, it was always something new, it was always scenery as well, whereas now it's a very sort of like, you must do this forever.
You can still do that within ranges. I mean, you can still pick up like demons or nids, you know, and I know they're still science fiction, but they're still like, or even like other manufacturers' games or whatever the case may be, you can still pick up stuff that is just a little bit different, and it will help with that palette cleanse as well.
So I've got almost a bit of a two-part one from Jack Bellaby. Do you have any of your painters painting for you in-house in the studio, or all your guys freelance working from home? Would love to have my own commission studio one day. Also, how much has your price changed since starting out?
So there's quite a few bits of that. So so we got internal team, and we also have obviously external team. Like if all cards, like if we were all in one building, COVID would have killed the business. Because you can't all be in the room. So we do have internal team. We do have obviously external team. So we have different people that work in different places, which is quite good for just flexibility for lots of different things. The other part of it was about pricing, I think wasn't it?
Pricing. How much has it changed since starting out?
So when I started, obviously I geared the name Siege at being a certain type of quality level from when I started it. I wanted it to be quality that people would be very happy to receive, and also pay a fairly decent amount of money for. And then obviously, look, as the industry's got bigger and busier, and obviously as the team's grown, the company's grown, and the skill level within the team has grown massively as well, then like we have price increases like any business. I treat it like a commercial entity. We have price reviews. We check prices to make sure that you're not painting 500 scales on a skink for something that you can't. We obviously review everything just because you have to as a business,
Quite a short time, isn't it, as well?
And exactly. So we just review it accordingly and tweak and move it depending if needed to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's good. So we've got Paul Hopkinson. Do you get lots of requests for commissions, and do you have to be selective based on capacity to complete? If so, how do you choose?
That's a really good one. We do get lots of inquiries, but the thing what we do with that is we do all inquiries. We quote everything. Obviously, we don't want to turn away business. No, I don't think any company would. But there are things obviously that we may look at and be like, right, okay, well. There's a whole plethora of different types of miniatures out there. You've got some that maybe the cast isn't very good, or maybe that the print isn't very good, or all these kind of things. So there are things that we might do, and this is before we go down the realms of things that perhaps may not be suitable to be painted for various reasons. Like for example, something that could be perceived the wrong way or whatever. At the end of the day, Siege's got a reputation, and we're a business, and I don't want to do anything that would jeopardise or damage that.
Swatch stickers on Space Marines.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it and not me. Yeah. So
I knew where you were getting.
I was thinking
So it's not the worst, but it's not the worst thing we've been asked for. But
that's the problem with 3D printers now. The world's your lobster, isn't it?
There is that. Yeah. But yeah, I think that being selective is. I wouldn't say we're selective. I'd say that we'll paint anything. Now we're stigmatised as a 40k studio, which is as much as it's great because it's a very strong dominant game. Lots of the team like Bolt Action, they like Infinity, they like Malifaux, they like all these other game systems and miniatures that are out there. Even like Hero Forge characters for your D&D, or like even Napoleonics. But I think different demographics go to different mediums to get their models done. Or I think, for example, like there are certain companies that have been going for a long time doing specifically Napoleonics, as an example. And it'd be lovely to paint all those types of models, but we do get asked for a certain type of model and a certain game system quite a lot, and if that business is there, then obviously that's the core business of the company.
I mean, I'd love to. At some point, it will happen. I'll make it happen. I'd like to do more stuff that's a bit varied, but we get more views with the 40k stuff, which is a shame. And we've got to grow our business, but I'd like to expand, and even if it's like a feature here and there. So I totally get.
Yeah.
You've got a business.
To
run, and you need to make sure it works. So Andrew Harring is asking the tough questions, and I'm all for this. How does James feel about a nice brown rim? Are you a black rim guy or a brown rim guy?
See, when you go into an art gallery, they've all got black frames on normally, and for me, I like black base rims. The way I do it is this: black base rims for display models, brown base rims if you're wanting for game. Having said that, a black base rim is way easier to touch up if you've been manhandling it than a brown base rim, because you see that brown base rim straight away.
And also usually the plastic is black, so when your finger rubs the black off, you don't really. Unless it's been sprayed white beforehand.
Exactly. There is that. Yeah,
that's not a bad observation.
Yes.
You're still not going to change my mind, bro. So Ashley McDowell, what do you think the best skill technique to work on to take someone's painting skill to the next level from a beginner? So how does someone what's the best skill or technique to work on to increase your skill set?
I think pressure management with the brush is quite an important one. It's something that we often overlook. We often get asked, do you always use like bigger brushes for this or smaller brushes for this, or if you're painting this part of a model, do you use this? Like, depending on where you place the pressure on a brush tip. So obviously if you're doing fine detail work, most even size 5, size 6s, when I used to own Artis Opus or be one of the owners, like I would massively be an advocate of like a bigger brush. You can still do lots of stuff with, and if it's got a really sharp tip on it, you can still do stuff like freehand and all these kind of things. So mastering pressure management, and if you put pressure just specifically on the tip of the brush to draw straight sharp lines or little sigils, all this kind of stuff, you've still got a huge brush behind it, but the moisture retention in that brush head means the tip will work for longer typically. Being able to apply the pressure to the brush head differently to get different shapes, different layering, the control of the pigment, push the pigment in a certain way, all that kind of stuff. That is a skill which you can get a bit of plastic card and just sit there practicing, moving paint around, drawing straight lines with a big brush, and you'll develop such more muscle memory on your hand as a result of that. And it transfers directly to layering, blending, freehanding, edge highlighting with a tip rather than the side, all that kind of stuff. It's a huge thing that you should master pressure management on whatever brush you're using. Because when you go from a big brush down to like a size 000, if you've mastered the pressure management on the tip and you can do really sharp stuff with a big brush, this is like a scalpel, and it helps hugely with
Do you know what, that as when you hear advice from people and good painters on all over YouTube as you do, I can't remember last time I heard that. But a really nice one, man. Yeah, I can't remember last time I heard someone saying that.
Cheers, dude.
Yeah, that's good. What's your favourite outlet to unwind outside of painting, work, if any? This is from Weather This.
So I got my dogs as a distraction from work, and then I got super into dog training. So it kind of became like, it became a bit of a hobby just doing that. And then, so my dogs are the outlet for me away from the world of Warhammer. And
what are their names again?
Well, I say I got away from Warhammer. So I've got a rescue. One's a rescue, and one's I had from a puppy. So my Doberman I got from a puppy, I called Dante.
Yeah, nice.
And conveniently, the other one's called Rogue. So it kind of has a bit of a sneaky rogue trader kind of vibe going on. So
Dante's a nice name for a Doberman.
Yeah, he is.
It's a good fit.
Honestly, it was purely what sounds great from 40k that I can shout down a park without looking weird. Yeah, that's kind of like the thing.
Call the betrayer.
Yeah, you can't shout, you can't shoot like, yeah, and you start shouting like Slanesh or Zinch or something like that. So my dogs are the outlet from Warhammer for me.
Oh, nice. L. Smith saying, what's the most expensive commission you've ever had? And do any famous people get stuff commissioned by you?
I can't say.
No, I didn't think you would.
Yeah, I can't say obviously anything like that. I won't deny or confirm, but that leaves it open to interpretation. Commission values, again, trying to remain as professional as possible. We are obviously a premium studio. We are expensive. I've never hidden that. We do have extremely skilled painters that work for us. High figures are the highest figure is a high figure, and it wasn't just for like one model. It was for a big, huge army all painted to a super high level. So it's an honour and a privilege to work on stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is from Eric Langenbach or Langenbach. So murdered your name. Do apologise. What is the most commonly requested spec that you have? And the other one is, do they usually say, "Here's the money, so long as," or some kind of praise?
So like we've gone through a phase of like we follow the meta quite nicely. So like when certain factions in popular up, we get lots of projects for that. Like for example, the Lion, has come out, so everyone's jumping on the 20 attacks crazy maniac that is the Lion at the minute. Which is great. But no, generally speaking, we get a real nice blend of people that just generally want something for their shelf, that they love the character or they love the army or love the faction, or people that game with their mates and really want the next addition to their force or something like that. We get a really nice blend. I wouldn't say with custom service, we've gone through a phase where we've done one Tiberus the Red Wake and then people want loads of Tiberus Red Wakes, so we've had stuff like that. But it does vary, it does really vary from month to month or week to week. We get asked for one thing or not be asked for ages, and then all of a sudden you'll get like 1,500 of them come through, and people are like, oh, the rules must have changed. So like it happens like that. But it's great. You get loads of variety, which I think is really good, and also very sort of privileged to have that.
I get that with like suddenly a haircut and you go,
I can imagine.
What footballer's gone and had their hair changed?
I'll ask a couple more, and then I know you got a scoot and stuff.
Okay,
we got Face and Base is a good one. I was going to ask this myself actually, which is, hi James, huge fan of the studio and the quality it produces. Any tips for ensuring that the minis reach their destination fully intact? Do you varnish your commissions?
Yeah, so everything's fully varnished. Like something I really want to say is like whether one thing to take away is correct model etiquette, and it's something that I try and it sounds really like, I don't want to sound like a snob or anything, but like if someone's invested loads of time into their models, whether they're doing it for tabletop or whatever, like just handle the model by the base rim. Like it's so easy to just pick the model up by the base rim. Like touching the model, whether it's varnished or not, is still going to do some kind of damage to the model in some way, shape or form. You don't know if there's a pinned weapon or like an arm's maybe magnetised on and then the arm falls on the floor. So we always, in studio, we always make sure that models are moved around like media, like in QC and all the different departments. They're always moved around by the base rim or they're moved on the tray, etc. But yeah, just move the model by the base and just look after the model as best as possible.
We used to have issues with that with photography, and sometimes it was just inevitable. Things would get knocked off because they were moving so many. It'll be like setups of like 400 figures, and inevitably someone's going to end up knocking an arm off or whatever. Yeah, I don't know about you. I find like the Citadel and most of the round beveled bases are quite hard to grab sometimes. I really like the Legion ones because they're quite sort of like that, and they're chunky, and I can pick them up better. Whereas like sometimes I'd like my fingers would slide a bit when you're trying to pick up like the 25mm ones.
I mean, the 25s are quite difficult. Like, I think the bigger the base size, it is easier to get that sort of more at chamfered or angled thing. But I just move it kind of close to the edge, put your hand,
Yeah,
and then it's going to
It's
like,
You know the thing they used to have when you see any control rooms in Second World War?
I mean, we did do that once for like one apocalypse shoot where we had to use like a broom handle to move some of the stuff along just to get it. Because this is the problem. Like
Generally, most of my games involves me taking them off with a brush.
Well, because you'd have the camera, you'd set it up, and you'd have like because you couldn't have like certain things obscuring others, so you'd have like this setup, and it was like, oh, that unit's right in front of that building. Perfect. Robert Brooke, he's asked a couple, but I'm going to go with this one. Slapchop, yay or nay?
Yeah, 100%.
I thought you might.
I don't think that like there's no such thing as a bad painting technique. It's whether it's fit for the purpose or task at hand.
Yeah.
If you want to game with your mates and get an army on the table in like a really short time frame, nothing wrong with it at all whatsoever.
Agreed.
If you're entering Golden Demon or any like painting competition, probably not the way to approach it. I think it's just choosing the right medium for what you want to use it for.
Yeah.
I think as opposed to having like any kind of like, oh, I don't like that. It's very similar to paints as well. I think people will very quickly label a paint as bad. It's almost like just take an example like there could be a green that's quite thin, for example, maybe doesn't layer quite well. Great for glazing, terrible for blocking in. I think it's very easy. Oh, that paint's terrible. It's not. It's not right for the job. Find one that is good for.
I agree. I used to hear a lot of things about like pallid witch flesh. Folks in the studio used to call it pallid witch chalk because it was quite chalky. Perfect for dry brushing. So good for dry brushing. I used to use it all the time.
There's a tool for every job, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's it.
But I mean, I still used it for layering and stuff.
Yeah.
And the last one, which is quite a good one as well. Well, they're all good. Alari. Is there a non-hobby product that the studio swears by, aside from glues, wood filler, etc.? A product not directly marketed towards miniature hobbyists that you use extensively throughout the studio?
There's lots.
Tea.
Tea. Lots and lots of tea. Tea. I mean, I think for when you say not hobby related, I mean, I take it obviously as a different product. I mean, just a good light is whether you're for painting, it's fundamental. I like the painting lights that I for reading. Sometimes you put it on the dimmer settings, it's just like the perfect vibrancy just to read without straining your eyes. If I was to say a hobby one, I'd probably say like a really good Tupperware. I'm a huge advocate of a Tupperware wet palette. I think there's loads of virtues to it over a preordained one. I think a good Tupperware, you'll be in TK Maxx Tupperware aisle for hours finding the right one. It's like that scene in Harry Potter with the wand,
it just calls to you.
My pal who I often paint with, or when I remember someone was selling on it, just when I've ended up with another extra wet palette, and at that point in time I'd had a homemade one, and I bought it was only like a tenner for this second-hand red grass one, and I brought it and I took it to my painting session with my pal, and I almost felt like I had to open it up behind my hand and not let him see it, because he's like Tupperware all the way, if it can be done, he's like paint and handle, 26-inch nails, bit of glue gun on the top, bang, and a piece of wood. And I'm always the guy who always just buys the gadget because it's just quicker and easier. And I had this painting palette, and he was like, "What have you got there?" I was like, "It was second hand. I promised it was second hand." He was like, "But it had been. You could have made your own for 17 pence." I'm like, no, but it was second hand.
I do rate. I think a good Tupperware is great for using as a wet palette. I think there's loads of virtues and benefits to it. Again, if you've got a pre-made one, that's fine. But I think that sometimes I like, when I'm painting, I like to have like quite a large workspace so I can put stuff and mix away from maybe something I'm using, and I was finding on sort of like smaller ones that like it would just become visually distracting. So having a much larger surface that you can just go, right, I'm going to get this, I'm going to put it over here, separate it from everything else, do whatever experiment it is that I'm doing to get a certain tone or colour or hue or whatever, or see how the paint, if I get a new paint, I'll always go, right, okay, well, I'll just put a bit of that on the palette, and then away from everything, see how it dilutes, see how it get it to a consistency where I can layer smoothly with it and do like that. But having a much reduced size, I find it quite
I've been finding that actually, because I've got an army painter one. I've been using that a lot. Weirdly, my mate Steve gave it me, and then we got sent a couple by army painter, so I've been using them. But I sometimes think I could do a bit more space. So,
I'd like a big working area, because even whether you're neat or whether you're messy on the palette and how you place stuff down or whatever, that's fine. It's part of the creative process anyway. But just having enough room and scope to be able to go, I want to remove that from everything, so it's visually, when you're looking at colours and all this stuff all the time, like having a nice an area or a decent size area that you can just remove something away and go like, right, okay, well, I'm just going to try that there, it just helps visually
Yeah.
separate yourself from it, which I find.
So I've got one question.
Yeah.
Before we obviously skip.
Oh yeah, we're okay for.
Oh, you sure? That's fine. Great.
Not
Even
just
better,
yet,
because it
but
might go on for a while.
Yeah, go on.
So I was interested by commission paint way before I left the studio. I was thinking, well, can I do that? If someone's out there watching this now when it's aired, how would someone go about getting into working for Siege Studios?
Right.
If you don't mind me
No,
asking.
it's fine. Definitely, it's perfectly fine. It's not a problem. I'm glad. I'm more than happy to answer it. So I don't treat recruitment for the company any different from recruitment when I was recruiting for a mechanical engineer or any of these things. Like because I do treat it as a trade, and we do look for skills and tangible ability and all that kind of stuff. People should ask the question: why do I have to send a CV when I apply for it? Because whether it's a freelance thing, whether it's part time, whether it's full time, whether it's you're still applying for a job.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't apply for any other job and not apply a CV. It's not that it's tangible. There are things like, as much as physical painting ability is really important, the person behind the brush is just as important as anything else, and that is in any industry. So that doesn't kind of stop at the door when it enters the realms of commission painting. So I'll always ask for a CV. A portfolio is obvious, because we want to see that you can paint a whole host of different things. You're going to have to paint Space Marines, and you're going to have to paint lots of things that are very, very popular. However, just seeing all the different things. If you do paint Infinity, if you do paint Malifaux, if you do paint Bolt Action, you still want to see that. Like, I think we've had a lot of people that have applied in the past that think they've just got to send us 40k because they see that all we post is what we post a lot of is 40k. I'd rather you send me loads of stuff, because then from that we can digest it down and go, oh, I can see that they can do free-handed kilts on those warriors, or I can see they've got the ability to do that's really helpful. And then just a bio about yourself, just more about your painting background, how you got into it, what things interest you. Do you hate painting horde armies? Like, are you more like the more stuff about you we can find out at that in the initial point, and that just email that into info@siegestudios.co.uk. Go through like a phone call where we talk about your experience, with your CV. You can see, and again, I'll touch upon it again. The CV is really important because it being frank, like from my recruitment times, if you jump in from job to job to job to job to job, that does show something, and it's important to see that kind of dedication to something, like in any job, because if you, I don't want someone that's going to take a project on and then capitulate a week into doing it, and we try and be as black and white from the day one, like, you are going to have to paint stuff that, quite frankly, you don't like the colour scheme, you might not like the choices by the client, you might not this, but then you've got to paint that as well as I'm going to use what I'm biased towards, but you've got to paint that as well as the Blood Angel army that you never want to give back at the end of the day. It's very, very much, they have to be the same as in the execution. Don't get me wrong, I understand, and I've been there in the early days when it was just me. You get those projects where you're like, oh, thank God that one's done. And I get that totally. I get that. But because we treat it the way we do, you can't look at it and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do as good a job on that one because whatever the case may be, that's essentially.
I mean, I am not a fan of painting stone bone and green skin, and I had to do a Savage Orc army, and it was a huge army, and I hate it, but it needed to be done because it was work, and I had to put the passion into it. And you find your ways and stick your favourite music on or whatever, but the green skin was treated like anything else. I give it the same level, so I totally get that. The thing I sounds very similar to what we used to do when we were recruited was we never looked at the miniatures first. We always looked at the cover letter. And Workshop always expected that, was like, look at the cover letter, get an idea of the person's personality, make a short list of them, then start looking at the paint jobs. Because you could be the best painter in the world, but you could be a massive heretic. And you don't want those in the studio. Or you could be someone that needs a bit of skill, but really nice and really open to development and like feedback and stuff like that. It's like, you know what, these are skills we can teach you. You've 100%. Got the right attitude. And that some people are always like baffled, like, how did that person get a job over me? Because they weren't heretic. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that there are people out there that recruited that were knobheads, but
totally.
It's that level of like, we had all sorts of like folks. There was a guy who still makes me laugh to this day when I was recruiting for photographers. There was some really, people knew what it was aimed at. There was one guy who just entered for the job. The cover letter was like, so don't know much about photography. My mate, I got my iPhone out and filmed his wedding for him one day. To be honest, I've never looked at your products. They all look a bit weird anyway, but I thought, I'll drop in my CV and a cover letter for consideration. I was like, nope, but fun. I really like your honesty. That's like the most honest cover letter ever. I don't really know much about photography or your products, but hey, give us a job.
And that's not what to put in your cover letter when you post it.
Oh God.
No, but I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, like it is really important. But again, I think that ties really nicely back to the fact that the way the industry is still perceived a little bit, you know, that it is a little bit more less than a professional thing, you know, and again, if you're doing it with a couple of mates, that's fine, you know, it's no problem at all whatsoever. But I think when you try and do it seriously, you have to take all aspects of it in that manner, you know, because it does affect everything else. If you do one part of it, if you don't give it the same weight of burden to something else, I think that it does affect it, you know, which is the thing. But yeah, we're always recruiting. I had someone who found the office before anyone worked in the office, just me. I had someone who'd done a paper round in the where we are, and they obviously were into Warhammer, and they literally knocked on the door and went, "Oh, is this Siege Studios?" Because I had like the logo on the bell or whatever, and I went, "Oh no." Like the pilgrimage has started, you know. I was like, I'm gonna have to take that off the bell now. And the kid was like, right, I really want to paint for the company, like really, really want to paint for the company. And they were very young, obviously doing a paper round. And I was like, well, number one, you have to be 18, like, you know, as a thing. But he's like, can I just paint a model and like just get some feedback and whatever? I was like, yeah, look, you know. He brought a couple of models by. I sat down with him and went, right, here's a pad, right, factual, opinionated. So I went through factual feedback, which is obviously things that are incorrect with the model, or like there's a sprue still attached to the model, or whatever, blah, blah, and opinionated, and then explained obviously the difference between the two. Because I think that's one of the things with feedback. Like sometimes when you do get feedback, it gets bombarded at you in a way that you can't digest it because it's getting hammered at you. Like you can't, like, so if you say, right, here's the factual things, this. But if I were painting it, I would have done this, you've done this, I would have done this, you've done this, I would have done this. And I think that helps massively with improving somebody. Yeah. So I done that with him, gave him from stores another, it was a Farsi, another one with a handout. So I gave him another one, went, right, all the factual stuff, improve that, and consider the opinionated, and here's a colour wheel, he brought the model back a couple of weeks later. The difference between that one to that one was just like... Yeah. And then, same again. Fresh page in your pad, factual, opinionated. Yeah.
See,
that's
model. That one,
that's the interesting thing, is like giving feedback is actually quite difficult.
It is,
and we see it a lot on channels and like on Instagram. Like some people just post stuff because they want to post it, but then there's people out there that feel that, well, because they posted it, I can say what I want about it. Yeah. And it's like, if they've asked for it, then fair enough. But there's also a way of delivering it. And I always try and, it's never really a poop sandwich, but I try to give the things I see that aren't, that need work, like you do. So I never really thought about it as the factor and the opinionator. I just see like, this is the stuff I've seen, and these are the solutions I would look at trying to tweak that or fix it. It's your choice. You don't have to do this, but these are the things that I would do if it was me to increase that, or these are the things you should like consider or look at or try. And there's people out there that just go, that's a rubbish model. Yeah. Why? What is it that you've seen that makes it rubbish? Yeah. Explain what that is and help that person. Yeah. By, as opposed to just being, because it is just being mean, right? Or just like they're not able to articulate what they're trying to say. They're just like, I don't like that. I'm going to message, I don't like that. Okay, that's cool, but why?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Like, if you put something up on socials or whatever, like, you know, it doesn't give someone the authority to just trounce it, or, you know, or throw their opinion on it. Like, if you genuinely put a post in a group or on a platform and go, look, I really want to improve. Yeah. Can you? I don't mind. You're not going to offend me. Blah blah. All this kind of stuff. Like, you know, if you do that and you're willing and open to accepting stuff, then be prepared to receive that in various different mediums. You're going to get it from people in all different angles, and some stuff could be written in a way that potentially could be. But just if you're putting something up and you don't put that, it doesn't give the authority for somebody to do that.
Yeah.
You know? But I think sometimes that line is stepped over a little bit. You know, too much sometimes. And really, when you put stuff online, you should be aware of asking, do I want people to be swathing me with critique and feedback, or do I just want to say, here's a really cool model I painted, hope you like it? That's not an invitation for someone to go, your base room's got loads of sand stuck to it. Like, that doesn't matter, maybe it wants it to, so like, you know, but I mean,
I'll be doing that soon with some airbrush and stuff, because I'm very used to do it mainly for undercoating workshop, and I've got an airbrush now and a compressor and stuff, so I'm like, getting my head around it. First of all, just like the bare mechanics, but I'm going to like start painting some stuff and go, not you, I'm new to airbrushing, feedback please, and it'd be like, give up.
Yeah. It is a huge Everest. I think a lot of people are worried about, but it's you know, it's the same thing. Like we always get the question, oh, what's better, brush or airbrush? I'm like, well, they're different tools.
Yeah.
Would you paint a wall with a little brush? No, you use a roller. So use airbrush to do base coating, you know, or to do your transitions.
Well, like with the Warrior stuff, that's like a really nice way of looking at it. It's like, you know, you get those sort of zenithal highlights and whatever, and it's kind of like it's through volume, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're literally doing loads in one go, doing a bit of a burst, bit of a glaze, dry brush or edge highlight, and that's.
I mean, even like the box art style stuff, like you to put that main color on, like it would be silly to do it with a brush. And if you're trying to, especially when you're trying to do it, you know, in a way that's time efficient without sacrificing quality, you would be mad to do it with a brush, like using an airbrush to get your ultramarine blue or Calgar blue or whatever it is you're painting the models in, like to get that on with the airbrush, that does 10% of work on the overall 100% of the miniature, but that 10% is done to a standard that when everything you apply on top of it complements and benefits the quality of that first 10%.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the way to look at it, really. Like, you're not going to, I mean, Ankel was pretty good with an airbrush, let's be honest. I think everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen him, with the 1.5 needle that he uses, I've seen him do stuff that I could never dream of doing, you know, like, you know, but apart from Ankel, who's gifted by the gods, you wouldn't paint eyes on a model with an airbrush, you know, or you wouldn't do certain things with it, but it's phenomenal for...
Not with that attitude, you wouldn't.
No, definitely not.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're going to draw soon. You sent us some stuff, which is cool. Do you want blue, black, or mauve? Burgundy.
Burgundy, yeah.
Burgundy.
Yeah.
Oh, can I have blue, please?
Blue, yeah. I'm going to chuck that. I'm going to wear
Hey,
black.
thank you very much. That's extremely kind of you.
Very
Thank you,
kind.
Mark.
We've got
I
some
know.
t-shirts.
I know the timing of year isn't convenient for
I don't care.
beanies,
Could
but,
go
I'll go mine on as well.
Cool. I could look cool, and then he can go all like Royal Marine Commando.
Well, I was
We've got some
thinking
t-shirts as
I
well,
was
some black
thinking,
and some white.
yeah.
I was thinking night shift on a trawler personally with this beard, but you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like Henry Cavill in the early part of Man of Steel. That's what I'm getting from you. Right now, Jeff.
That's exactly what gets said about me all the
So
time.
you've got quite a bit of merch then.
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
That's lovely.
It's very nice.
I obviously from my band days, I used to do merch all the time when I was in bands, and like I think it's a nice thing to have as part of the business. It's just, again, like, t-shirts have always been something I've been a big fan of, and yeah. So we
Various sizes for us as well. It's very kind.
Yeah, I didn't know. I did mess with it. I didn't know.
He dropped me a message while I was dropping my kid off and then coming into work, and I didn't see it, and I feel really bad.
That's
That's
okay.
lovely.
It's all right.
These
Yeah,
I could
really
probably
nice.
put this in my jumper, to be fair.
That's
That
fine.
would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
a good look. Give it a go. Give it a go. Do it. I'm going to do it. Mrs. Peachy can be watching this going, you're an idiot. I'm like, yeah, I know.
You're still free for that photo shoot, aren't you?
Yeah. That's the calendar, right?
That's the calendar. Yeah,
I'm just wearing your merch and nothing else. Just the hat and the t-shirt.
Okay, I did not ask for that.
That's how I read it.
I have to double check my message.
Oh, I feel like a skateboarder now. I'll go to the skate park. I'll see you later, guys. This is great. I've just ruined my hat. Sometimes I get like, my wife says I look like a dustbin man because I've got one of these at home and I put it on. She's like, take that off, you look like a dustbin man. So,
That's lovely. Thank you
Yeah,
very
that's
much
all right. No
indeed,
worries,
man.
it's
It's
all
really
right.
appreciated.
That's
that's really
all
good.
good.
Really,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks for coming on the show as well.
No,
It's been
thank you very much for having
great.
me.
I mean, if there's any other burning things you want to get off your chest.
No, I didn't want to use it as a like a crazy platform for me to say anything.
No,
I
it's about you.
no special announcements.
Everybody
or
else
anything.
does.
Yeah. Go buy. No, I mean, it's fine. No, but no, yeah. Just thank you very much for having me. I think the show you're doing is amazing. Like, it's really good.
Thank you.
I mean that sincerely. Like, the podcast format you're doing is really, really good. I think you had some phenomenal guests on. You know, we were talking about a few before obviously we've done, but yeah, you had some phenomenal guests on, and it's just really good to see another medium for the community to kind of engage with people and find out more about different people and channels and individuals. I think it's a really good way of doing it. So yeah, you're doing a great thing. So keep doing it. And
Yeah, it's nice
Oh, that's
picking at
really sweet.
the background of folks. That's what I'm all about. It's like how, you know, everyone's journey. There's a lot of similar journeys, interestingly, but it's you know, like how you get into doing these kind of things. So getting you on the show has been great, and you know, for me, just understanding like it is. You're right. I never would have considered it, but it is a trade.
it is, yeah.
And you should be seen as that, and it should be respected for that as well. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean that, like, it doesn't have to be at like the commercial like end that we're at. It could be just someone who works from home. You know, that also as well. I don't think just because they work from home or just because they're an individual, like, you still have individual plumbers that go and do stuff. I don't think that's you know, it's the same as yourself, obviously, in what you do. You know, so yeah.
Well, if you too want to get some stuff painted by Siege Studio, check out the website. The link will be in the description. Also, maybe if you at home going, I really want to do some painting for Siege, contact this guy.
Yeah, definitely apply.
Definitely apply. Obviously, send a CV.
Please do.
As always, hit the like and I was nearly said describe again. I keep doing it. Like and subscribe.
Patreon as well.
And of course, thank you to Patreon. Thank you for your questions as well. You guys are amazing. Keep supporting us. And if you also want to join on Patreon, just go over to Patreon. There's a link again in the description, and there's all sorts of different tiers, and that could be joining our Discord, because we've got a nice community on Discord where we just chat and show pictures of dogs and
I'll join
memes.
that. I'll every day.
Just for there's everything. There's a bit of everything. Star Wars Legion, if
I love
you know.
it, yeah, Star Wars
I'm
Legion.
all about Star Wars Legion right now. I don't know why, but I just love it. So thank you as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
James, and we'll see you again
See you
soon.
Take care, guys.
Two bits.
Thank
See
you.
you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.